All right, good morning. Welcome to the fire weather briefing for August 31st. Got myself, Jeremy in Spokane, and Maddie over in Seattle. And just as a disclosure statement here, this meeting is being recorded. By joining and participating in this session, consent is being given to the recording. Please keep cameras off per NOAA Privacy Act statement. All right, looking at the lightning map over the last 24 hours, there's really not too much to show, which is good news since we weren't talking about thunderstorms yesterday. But there have been a couple strikes. We did have one there in the Blue Mountains in southeast Washington, also one near Vantage, just north of Vantage this morning, and also a few west of Cooley City here since this map was created that I'll show in a little bit. Looking at the next 7 days as far as the fire weather concerns, we did add isolated thunderstorms for today for eastern Washington, and those will continue into tomorrow, mainly in the morning. Otherwise, we're looking at hot, dry, and unstable conditions for several days. We may start to trend cooler heading into next weekend, but several days until then to iron that out. Now, Maddie, I'll let you talk about Western Washington.
Yeah, so we've definitely had a few isolated thunderstorms pop up on the west slopes of the Olympics, and we've got a few echoes coming in on the foothills area in Puget Sound. So we're watching those, and there's a limited threat, especially for around the crest of the Cascades today. But we'd expect the Olympic Peninsula stuff to seemingly die off around noon. And then, kind of like the rest of the state, we're going to be warming up and drying out, bringing in some instability there through the late week period and cooling off over the weekend.
All right, great, thanks. Looking at the thunderstorm concerns for today going into Monday morning, all the areas highlighted in yellow here have been designated as elevated for isolated thunderstorms with only light rainfall. So non-wetting rain storms that develop are going to be moving pretty quickly. They're also elevated in nature with warm, dry conditions beneath the cloud bases. So that's going to limit the rainfall amounts. And the period of most concern is when we see a stronger mid-level wave move through tonight into Monday morning. So 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Monday is when we have the highest potential for lightning in these areas. But again, we have seen a few strikes already. Maddie, anything you want to add on this graphic?
Nope, that about covers it. Thanks.
Okay. Here's the current satellite image from this morning. There is a low pressure system off the Washington coast, and that's what's bringing the instability across the region ahead of that low. Looking at the morning satellite more zoomed into the area, this little enhancement in the mid-level clouds did produce a few lightning strikes, and also there's those areas that Maddie was talking about on the west side. Over northeast Washington, we haven't seen any lightning, but we could see some sprinkles come out of this activity. And this is what the radar looked like at 8:30 a.m. this morning. And here is the storm that produced a strike near Vantage as it continued to move off to the north. It's produced a few strikes here to the west of Cooley City. And then there's those areas on the west side as well, some bands of convection developing. Okay, moving on to the rest of the slides. As far as the hazards go, there is a heat advisory out for portions of eastern Washington where temperatures are going to be well above normal into the mid to upper 90s for the locations that are within the heat advisory. And this runs all the way out through Thursday. Likely this will be expanded to include more areas as the rest of the region starts to heat up by the middle of the week. And there's also some air quality alerts out for parts of Idaho. All right, moving on to the weather tabs. We'll start with day one here. Here's the high temperature forecast for today. Hot temperatures on the east side. Again, the readings up into the 90s and even a few places right up near 100 degrees, with minimum relative humidities getting down into the 15 to 25% range on the east side, and also some lower values there along the west slopes of the Cascades. And looking at the maximum humidity recoveries for tonight, we are looking at generally poor to fair recoveries on the east side of the Cascades, with some much higher recoveries there on the west side. And the lowest recoveries are going to be across far southeast Washington around the Blue Mountains into the central Panhandle Mountains. Moving on to day 2 for the high temperatures tomorrow, we see the temperatures drop just a little bit across central Washington, but it's still going to be hot over eastern Washington into the Idaho Panhandle. And then on the west side, it's going to be relatively cooler compared to the rest of the state, in the 70s to low 80s for the most part. And then minimum relative humidities will be another dry day again across eastern Washington. And then for the winds, I meant to actually show the winds for day 1, so let me back up to look at the winds for today and tomorrow. For today, there will be, with that low off the coast, inducing a east to southeasterly gradient that will bring some locally breezy winds for the Okanagan Valley and for the Cascade Valleys. And then as we go into tomorrow, a lot of that continues. So if we do get any lightning starts the hot, dry, and somewhat breezy conditions could lead to some fire spread with any new starts. And there also can be some gusty outflow winds near thunderstorms as well. So that is something that we will be keeping an eye on for the next 24 hours. Moving on to QPF, this is the forecast over the next 3 days. Light amounts. We're looking at, again, non-wetting rains with any thunderstorms that occur. There could be some light amounts pretty much anywhere where thunderstorms happen. But again, we're just looking at light amounts, and that's the main message I wanted to get across on that. All right, moving on to the trends, I'll pass it back to Seattle.
Yeah, so I went with Ohonopacash down here, just south of Mount Rainier. I think it illustrates the upward tick in the temperatures pretty well as we head into the mid to late portion of the week. And this is probably the most favored zone for those relative humidities, getting down into the 20s and maybe even upper teens. Sometimes it definitely is a bit drier than forecast down there. Still not seeing too much of a wind threat. Things are pretty reasonable and not from a very concerning direction. So we're just going to be focusing on the hot, dry, and possibly unstable conditions as we head into the rest of the week.
Okay, sounds good. And then across eastern Washington, I'm going to zoom in to the Deer Mountain. We're going to look at that site because the Crown Creek fire grew significantly yesterday up in this area. So this site is probably one of the more representative sites for that area. This is at 3,300 feet. And you can see the temperatures are going to be getting up into the low to mid 90s, even up at that elevation, all the way through the week, with minimum relative humidities trending a little bit drier each day, getting down into the teens by the middle of the week. And this includes some poor overnight humidity recoveries. So that's definitely a concern in that area. And then for Idaho, we'll go ahead and just look at Knuckles, which is at a similar elevation and a similar story, that these mid-slope and ridge tops are going to be very warm through the week with poor humidity recoveries, but trending cooler as we head into the weekend. And next week we may start to see at least some moderating of the very hot, dry weather for early September that we'll be looking at for the next several days. The 8 to 14 day outlook is favoring increased odds for warmer than normal temperatures, with slightly elevated odds for wetter than normal conditions. So this is valid to September 7th through the 13th. All right, so I think that is all I have. I will see Seattle. Do you have anything else you would like to add before I stop the recording?
I think we're good. Thank you much.
Okay.